I want to welcome you to the Ask Jeff YouTube channel. Here's today's question. What are the main points of Luther's 95 Theses? Well, this goes back to October the 31st, 1517, when a monk by the name of Martin Luther decided to, quote, air his grievances by placing it on the church at Wittenberg, Germany's door. Now, when I talk about air grievances, yes, there were grievances, but that was a public forum. That was a normal thing. That would be like today making a social media post. It was a place where people got information, heard community announcements, and so it wasn't as big a deal as we believe it is as far as in its form and shape, but it was a big deal in what it contained. Why? Because if I were to categorize the 95 Theses, there are two areas that he was struggling with, and he was asking what we know as the Roman Catholic Church to not just to clarify, but to make sure that it was in congruence with Scripture. The two areas were the areas of indulgences. Indulgences was the ability to ask for and receive forgiveness of one's sins in advance of committing them. Obviously, there's no scriptural evidence for this, and really that's the major portion of the 95 Thesis, was not only to show scriptural evidence, but to also cease the practice because it did not line up with Scripture. Secondly, was on the abuses of the office of what we know as the Pope. A lot of historical evidence that taking great advantage of the people, the church, the finances, etc. And so therefore, basically calling an audit of the practice of the church, indulgences, and an audit of the office of the church in those days, what we know as the Pope. Yes, it was an airing of grievances, but here's one thing I want you to hear at the end of this question. Whom we know as Martin Luther, we have a movement called the Reformation that's really named after him. It's not what he was desiring. He wasn't desiring a revolution. He wasn't even desiring to leave what we know as the, quote, Catholic Church. He just wanted to become conformed to Scripture. That's all he wanted. Martin Luther really didn't leave the church. The church removed him from themselves, but that's a whole other question. But indulgences and the office and the practice of the Pope were the main issues of the famous 95 Theses. Great question. If you have one, send to AskJeff.net. Maybe your question be tomorrow's. Thank you so much for being a part of our daily question here at the Ask Jeff YouTube channel. I want to encourage you on a few things. Number one, if you have a question to ask, submit it to AskJeff.net. Eventually, we'll get around to your question. Secondly, we'd encourage you to subscribe. That way, each and every day, Monday through Friday, you get a reminder of our question of the day. And last but not least, I want to remind you that on Wednesday evenings, live at First Baptist Church of Opelika, fbcopelika.com, we do a solid hour of Ask Jeff where we dig into the questions more than just 60 or 90 seconds. Sometimes we take the entire hour. All that being said, AskJeff.net is where you submit a question to this channel each and every day, Monday through Friday.